all the time on this programme, and the shortage of nurses, the amount of nurses who are going abroad, but it just shows you the calibre of nurse that we have when a team of 6 recruiters from 2 rural New South Wales health districts are hosting an information session and interviews in Galway on the 19th of May in a new recruitment drive for Irish nurses and midwives from Galway, Mayo and Sligo. They're doing so in association with the ICE group, and the managing director of that group joins you on the line, Margaret Cox. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us today. 6 recruiters, Margaret. That's a serious delegation coming over.
Yeah, this is flying doctors and nurses essentially, because it's from rural New South Wales, 2 areas, one called Southern New South Wales and one called Murrumbidgee, New South Wales, and they're a little bit out in the country, but there's 6 people, and between here in Ireland and the UK, we're meeting over 200 nurses. And
how many are they looking for, or is the world their oyster at this stage? I mean, the packaging question is quite generous. I mean, there's a very good relocation fee there, and there's good terms and conditions. But what areas will they be working in again? You say flying doctors. Will they be?
Well, now they don't always go in the planes and the helicopters, but sometimes they do. But they're working in rural areas, towns like Wagga Wagga, towns like Murrumbidgee, so small. Essentially, this is different from downtown Sydney or a metropolitan area like Dublin or downtown Sydney. It's in the country, close to beaches or rivers, small communities. So to be like in a maybe a Ballinasloe or an Athlone or a Loughrea perhaps, and they'd have primary care centres, and then they have a range of different nursing, mental health nursing, paediatric nursing, intensive care nursing, ED nursing. So across the range in terms of nursing. The benefit of working in rural New South Wales in any of the areas that have vacancies is essentially the cost of living. So that's their unique selling point. They've got wonderful facilities because the government invest in the healthcare systems there, particularly in the rural areas. They've got amazing opportunities for promotions, for education, and then the schooling is brilliant. There's both public and private schools, but really good for nurses that would have families and want them to go to school. Really good, strong investment in schools as well there, and lots of downtime to enjoy. I was talking to one of the nurses, Chris, this morning. She was saying it's just started snowing in the snowy mountains, so people are getting into their ski gear in Australia to go skiing in the evening, and then maybe the next day they'd be down on the beaches and going for a swim. So that's the kind of lifestyle, Keith. It's beautiful. Really beautiful.
It is, and you painted a nice picture for them. How long is the duration then of the appointment there?
So look at this, which is interesting, and I suppose gives an idea of how tough it is or how, like you said, the world is the oyster for nurses. So we're recruiting for working holiday visa nurses. They can come and stay and work for 12 months in a 2-year period, and come home with $10,000 Australian dollars as a stipend when they're coming home after their 2 months. So that's the working holiday visa people. And then there's temporary visas, and then there's the permanent visas. So permanent visas is you're there for life or as long as you want to stay with them. Temporary could be for up to 4 years. And then the working holiday visa is the opportunity. You could work full time for the 2 years if you wished, but if you wanted to mix the travelling and the working and see Australia and come home with a bit of money saved as well, you can do that too. Those are the opportunities that are there.
So is the 10,000 that you're referring to then, is that a kind of a part of a severance package that when you're going home you get a bonus of 10,000?
Well, it's I wouldn't call it a severance package. It's more under the relocation is the words that they're using. I presume there's probably reasons that they use terminology like relocation and so on like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a severance or a relocation package. But it's an incentive. I suppose that's probably a better word for it, but it's an incentive. And this is one of the first times that working holiday visa nurses, if we're going over with 2 to 3 years experience perhaps, are getting those types of incentives.
And I mean, forgive the question, but do you feel guilty? Trying to recruit for Australia when we have such low numbers here as well?
Yeah, I love that question, Keith, and I'll tell you why. No, I don't feel guilty, because what we've seen is that nurses are going to travel anyway, and they're entitled to travel the same way as carpenters travel and accountants travel. You're not any different just because you're a nurse. So a nurse is entitled to travel. They might go for 1 year or for 2 years. And some of them, fall in love and get married and live forever and ever in Australia. But our statistics show that about 93% of nurses, Irish nurses in particular, who do go to Australia, come back. They come back after 2, maybe 3 years, and they come back and they get brilliant jobs in the HSE, or they get brilliant jobs in the private health sector. And because of the experience that you gain in Australia is second to none. It's like a promotional course in terms of your career development, because it's very different in Australia. The way that they work in what they call their multidisciplinary teams. The nurse is the most important part of that team, working together with the doctors, the social workers, the radiologists, and in particular, if you're in the rural side of nursing there, the things that you see are absolutely incredible in terms of your long-term development and career development. And for instance, again in the rural, and this is one of the good things that has come out of COVID, every hospital or primary care centre in the rural has been fitted out with amazing technology, so that if somebody comes into your hospital and you're not certain what to do, you dial a number, and up on a screen you've got your virtual consultant who's talking to you from one of the downtown hospitals in Sydney, and you have that virtual nursing assistance and doctor support. And I've seen that in action, because we were in Australia in March and we got to visit some of the locations, and it's like Star Wars. You press a button and up on the screen is somebody to help you with what it is that you have a question on.
Your consultant 5,000 miles away. So it's very similar to teachers then. I mean, once they finish training, they'll teach in Ireland for a year or two, and then they'll go to Dubai or otherwise. But what you're saying to me today is you don't feel guilty, because they're going to go anyway, because it's part of life and getting on with life. But you're saying think of Australia rather than Dubai, USA or otherwise, and come along to these events on the 19th.
That's right. And not only are we meeting we're in Dublin today and tomorrow, and then we're in Cork and Limerick, and we're in Galway on Friday. So, anybody can check out the details on icejobs.ie, or they can email us at nurse@icegroup.ie, just nurse@icegroup.ie, and we'll set them up with an interview, or even if they just want to come for a chat, so they can understand what's involved. We want to give them as much information as possible to help them make a decision.
I was looking at the package in total. I mean, in addition to the high Australian wages, there's a very generous relocation incentive package, which, again, I don't know what the Australian dollar is worth today, but it's a sizable incentive indeed for nurses to travel.
Yeah, it's up to 30. So for the permanent residencies now, so it's up to $32,000 Australian dollars. So I reckon that's about 14 or 15,000 euros. It depends on the rate. Now it's made up of reimbursement of costs around your visa, relocation expenses, and then a gratuity or an incentive to help you in terms of education and doing additional courses. And this is the kind of thing that people can do. They do their courses and then they'll always have that on their CV. But I mean, 32,000 Australian dollars it is a very generous incentive package. And on top of that, particularly in the rural areas again, if families go over, they help to find jobs for the spouses, whether it's the husband or the wife. They try to, in the local community, find them employment. There's accommodation always available for families when they go to the local areas, because it's not downtown Sydney, so it's much easier to get settled in. And then, of course, in all honesty, the cost of living is really, really much lower outside of the metropolitan areas. And what they're seeing as well is a lot of nurses and families from Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane are moving to the rural areas in terms of nursing themselves. So they're getting an influx of Australian people moving out of the cities because of the same issues that we have here. The cost of
availability,
rent, the cost, availability and all of that. And, Galway, Dublin, Limerick, it's all around the country for families maybe who haven't purchased a house. And indeed, even if you want to purchase a house out in the rural, you're looking at, you're looking at a much cheaper house to buy. So your dream of being a homeowner, your kids going to school and then on to college and so on, is certainly very achievable if you're working in those areas.
Just very briefly, somebody's after saying, what do you mean permanent? Will they work with the visa if I want to go as a nurse with 15 years service? Can I get permanent residency in Australia? Oh,
absolutely. Absolutely. What's really interesting in Australia is for nursing at the moment, they're taking people in their late 40s, early 50s for permanent visas. Normally, it's a much lower age group that they would accept for permanent visas, but in nursing and healthcare, they're giving permanent visas, permanent residencies to people with tons and tons of experience. So 15 years experience, they'd love you. So give us a call, nurse@icegroup.ie. We'd love to hear from you.
If you want to give them a ring, or if you're a parent that wants to get further information, 091 475 100. That's 091 475 100 for further details from there. It's an interesting one, Margaret, it really is. But as you said, they go away anyway for a period of time. And 93% of them come back, so that's 7%.
That's right.
That remain there. So I suppose some patient, I spoke to a parent recently of a nurse, and they were cautious that we're going over there for 2 years and will she be safe, and they don't want to fly that far and all that. But look at the young person in question is qualified as a nurse, and they make their own mind up from there. Margaret, good luck with it. So again, you're going to be in Galway on the 19th. Where will you be, or where can they go on the 19th?
We'll be in ICE Group in Centrepoint. We'll be in the Centrepoint offices of ICE Group on Friday. And as I said, if people have friends around the country, Cork or Limerick, we're going to be there as well during the week. And we're in Dublin for the rest of today and tomorrow, and a half day on Wednesday.
Okay. For the details, just go to the ICE Group website and get further details, or ring them 091 475 100. Margaret Cox, thank you for joining us today. Maybe I should have been a nurse all those years ago. Wouldn't be good now, though, would it? I'm joking. I love what I do. By the way, good morning to all involved in